a young woman would get on her bike, and the plan was to go straight home, go to bed. Unfortunately, she never made it home. Hello, true crimerers. This is another true crime in a short amount of time, and it is the case of Mickey Shunick. Viewer discretion is advised. Michaela Shunick, who would go by Mickey to everyone in her life, was born on May 21st, 1990. And she was born and raised and spent her entire life in Louisiana. She was described as a truly good and special person. She was beautiful on the inside and the out. She loved animals more than anything, it seems. I can relate. I'm sure a lot of us can. She would always donate to, animal foundations and whatnot. Mickey was also an avid bike rider. She loved it. She would use her bike to go anywhere that was close by, at least. Unfortunately, just a couple of days before her birthday, on May 19th, 2012, Mickey Shunick would go on her final bike ride. On the night of May 19th, 2012, Mickey had gone out with some friends. They went to, a bar or something like that, and then afterwards, she would hang out with her friend Bretley, and they went back to his house, and he lived roughly 4 miles from her home. Basically, they hung out for a little bit, and then she left the house sometime that night, and then got on her bike to take the 4-mile trek home. And then the very next day, one of her siblings was graduating, and she was expected to be at the graduation. She was really, really close with her siblings, and she was someone who would never, ever, ever miss any commitments. So when she didn't show up to the graduation, her family was very concerned. Because she hadn't come home, so they figured she just slept at a friend's house, which she did all the time. But then when she didn't show up for graduation, that was a lot of red flags. So after graduation, they went straight home. She still wasn't there. Her bike wasn't there. No sign that she ever came home. So her family would report her missing pretty quickly, and then police began their investigation. They spoke to the friends that she was with, and then they spoke to this gentleman, Bretley. He said they were at a bar, that they had gone there around 10:15 p.m. They hung out for a little while. They then, because he also had his bike, so they both rode their bikes back to his place. They then got into his car, where they drove to, a nearby Taco Bell, got some grub, and then went back to his house, where they ate food and talked for a little bit. Bretley apparently was having other friends over that night / very early morning, but Mickey said, she's, I want to go home, I want to go home and crash, I have the graduation tomorrow. So he tells police that she got onto her bike around 1:45 a.m., He watched her get on it. He watched her ride away. He did offer to drive her home, but she said, no, I want to take the bike. And then from there, he didn't know what had happened to her. Police do their due diligence to make sure Bretley is telling the truth, because as of this point, he is the last person to see her alive. So they go to the bar where he says they were at. They find CCTV footage. They confirm the two of them were at the bar, and for the time frame that he said. Then they pulled up CCTV footage along with the receipt from the Taco Bell purchase. They see him in the car purchasing the Taco Bell, and Mickey is there in the car with him. And then later, they are able to confirm that what Bretley said about her leaving around 1:45 in the morning, because there's a lot of cameras on these streets. And so they were kind of trying to find cameras along the path she would have taken. And lo and behold, they find her a little after 1:45 in the morning. They see her on the bike. So they can now confirm Bretley's account. He is nowhere with her. He never shows up in the footage. So they are able to quickly rule him out of any potential foul play. as they're looking at each camera, they're basically able to figure out where on this road she had just kind of vanished. And apparently that was on St. Landry Street. Then, and at this point of night, there really is very few cars on the road, they see a white Chevy pickup truck right by her. And it almost seems to be following her from like kind of at one point from a distance. And you kind of see the truck kind of going back and forth. But this truck, whoever occupies it, seems to be fixated on following Mickey. And by the way, Brettley did not own a white truck, so no, it was on him. Police, because at this point they still have no Mickey, they don't have her bike, they don't have anything. So they put out a press release, they go on the news and say, listen, here's this white pickup truck. Does anyone recognize it? And if so, please call us with any information you have. And that does lead to a tip. This tip, it comes from, I'm not sure exactly who, but someone said that a man had, someone this person knew, had recently burnt their white Chevy pickup truck. They set it on fire. And then this person basically got another white pickup truck to make it look like basically he never actually got rid of his other truck, which is very suspicious. The person in question who had this white pickup truck was a man named Brandon Laurenier, I believe. Brandon is a registered sex offender. He's a bad dude. He had been charged in the past with oral sexual battery. He had also been charged in the past with like kidnapping. He broke into a woman's house, forced her into a sexual act. He was caught and he was convicted, but he only served a few years for this crime. He was released in 2008, and the crime happened in 2000 or 1999. They also found out that this Brandon fella, well, the day after Mickey disappeared, he had gone to a medical facility because he had a bunch of what looked like maybe stab wounds on his body. He said he got into, there was like a robbery, he was robbed at a gas station or something, and the person stabbed him. And so the next day he went to the hospital to get it all like fixed. But given his history, and given the fact that he has all these wounds on him, they arrest him under the suspicion that he may have been involved in something to do with Mickey Shunick's disappearance. A week or so after Mickey had vanished, her bike was finally found. And it was off Whiskey Road. And this is on the Atchafalaya River. I really probably butchered that, I'm sure. This is roughly 20 to 25 miles from where she was last seen riding her bike on camera. The bike was covered in filth and mud, and it looked like it had taken kind of a beating. In particular, the back tire had a lot of paint transfers to it, as if it had been hit by a vehicle. The whole tire was like out of whack, like it was damaged, and so it appeared that likely Brandon driving his, because the paint transfers on the bike were white, so his white pickup truck probably hit the bike and forced her off the road, and then he did whatever he may have done. So when police arrested him, at this point they have the bike. They still don't have her body, but they tell him, listen, we have you on camera. We have testimony from someone that says you burnt your car, your white truck. We have her bike now. We have everything. We just need Mickey. And they basically told him, listen, if you tell us where she is, if you say what happened that night, we will take the death penalty off the table. So Brandon, he talks. That night / early morning, May 19th, he is in his vehicle, and he is just driving the streets, looking for sexual activity, basically. And that's when he sees Mickey Shunick on her bike riding kind of by herself. You know, she is surrounded by emptiness, and she is now his prey. He then says he basically stalked her for a while on the bike when he then hits her bike on purpose. He then forces her into his truck, throws her bike into the bed of the truck. He was wielding a knife, and he did also have a gun in the vehicle. Mickey at one point tried to reach for her phone to call 911, but he slapped it out of her hand and threatened her with the knife. Then Mickey takes her pepper spray out and sprays him square in the face. He also is in pain and he can't see anything for a moment. She manages to take the knife directly from his hand and she stabs him multiple times. She got in some very good blows. You know what? Good for her. But he would manage to wrestle the knife out of her possession, where he then stabbed her. He had a hard time doing it because she had sliced his hand and some tendons had been cut, so he had a very hard time gripping the knife. But he stabbed her still 4 times, and then she fell to the ground, and he assumed that she was dead. He drove around for about an hour, where he found a location kind of just off the beaten path. He dragged her body out, and he was trying to dig a hole with a shovel, but he couldn't because his hands were injured. When all of a sudden, Mickey, who's been stabbed 4 times, gets up, grabs his knife again, and she stabs him in the chest. She put up a hell of a fight. Unfortunately, he had a gun, and he immediately pulled it out and shot her square in the head and killed her instantly. He then drove around with her body in his truck. He then found another location. He couldn't dig a hole again, so he just dumped her and threw a bunch of foliage and stuff over her. He then drove to a friend's house in Texas where he burnt his vehicle and managed to acquire another very similar looking vehicle. Then I guess he went back to Louisiana, where all of this happened. As all of this is basically happening, they get another tip that would eventually lead to the discovery of Mickey's body. They confirmed she had been stabbed many times, she had been shot in the head. I don't know if he ever actually managed to sexually assault her, though. I think basically because she fought back and she attacked him, I think that basically screwed his entire plan up. And again, good for her. When he's pleading guilty to Mickey's murder, he says, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and confess to another one. In June of 1999, a woman named Lisa Pate, she would disappear. And then she would be found at a later date with what appeared to be like a plastic bag over her head. Basically, I guess he maybe kind of casually knew her, and he one night forced her to go out of town with him, and when she got nervous and tried to kind of get away from him, he killed her. And she was found, her body was found in September of 1999, but no one knew anything about who had done it until he confessed in 2012. He would end up, taking the plea deal, and he was officially convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I would say, the best thing to do is, even if a friend is telling you, you know what, it's 1:40 in the morning, I'll ride my bike, convince them with all your might to let you give them a ride home. Do everything you can to make sure your friends get home safely. I'm sure that her friend kind of blames himself a little bit, and he's not at all at fault. He's not to blame. She is the one who wanted to go on the bike on her own. But, I guess in hindsight, which is always 20/20, they say, you always think about what you could have done differently. But what we can do is we can look at these situations, and we can now know for the future. It may not happen 100% of the time, but it happens. The lesson learned, I guess, is just make sure your friends get home safe. Just make sure. There are far too many monsters roaming the world as we speak, and a lot of them are just hiding in the shadows, waiting for the opportunity, like Brandon here did. But that is it for this case. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, if you have tripped, fallen, stumbled, and rolled into this video on accident, hi, I'm Mike. I tell true crime stories. I tell 4 true crime stories a week. So please subscribe, like the video, share it with people. Whatever you got to do, you do it. Also, I sell merch, including this Making a True Crimerer shirt. It's in the link tree, the description below. We ship internationally. My buddy Adam, he makes all of it. Yada, yada, yada. He's great. I have a Discord server if you want to join it. Go ahead. Plug it in. It's in the link tree. Be over the age of 18 or you're getting the smack out of you. What? I don't know what I'm doing here. But anyway, that's it for this video, True Crime Aroonies. And like I close every video... Hello, True Crimers. Subscribe if you like the true crimes. Or I will come to find you and eat your souls, you motherfuckers. Okay, bye.